Hello and welcome to Who Wins Podcast, where each episode we pit pop culture icons against each other in a brutal fight to the death. And we are kicking off 2022 on the show with a battle of the babies. It is Maggie Simpson versus Stewie Griffin. I am Chris Bolton. With me, as always, my partner in pugilism, Mr. Mark Williams.
Hello.
And here we go.
Right.
Okay.
So this one's been on the list for a while, isn't it? This was one of the very, very, very first ones we put on the list.
Oh God, like way back when we first had the idea for the show. I think this was one of the first ones put down. For some reason, we've never got around to it.
Yeah.
And it's just about we got around to it tonight because neither of us have done any preparation for anything. My house is upside down at the moment, so I don't know what the fuck's going on. So strap yourselves in, listeners. At best, this show tends to go off the rails. So
yeah, we meander a little bit at the best of times.
Yeah, who knows where this is going to go this evening? It's been on the list for a very long time. We've done some stuff with the Simpsons before, I think. Yeah, we did Simpsons and Flintstones, didn't we? All of that?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
I don't fuck knows. That was so fucking long ago. But yeah, for whatever reason, we've never got around to it. So, I guess then we're excluding everyone else from both families.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously they're both babies. All right. So there's going to be limited movement for both of these.
Say that. I mean,
Stewie's bipedal though, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, well, Maggie is for the most part as well. I mean, the problem with this one, when we put this on the list, I mean, obviously both shows have been going for a long fucking time now. I mean, Simpsons, I think, is in its like 34th year or something like that. Family Guy's been going for 20 years, which is just fucking baking my sweet.
Jesus Christ! What?
Yeah, the first series was 1998.
Fuck.
Possibly 99. But yeah, it was it was because they did their start of season 2. They did a Y2K episode.
Fuck.
And the problem I have with this, and I've not kept up with either show as much as I'd like to have. I mean, with the advent of Disney Plus, I've sort of started to catch up with Simpsons. I think I sort of tailed off about 2010 with both shows. The problem is the Stewie character has evolved so much, and by evolved I mean they've just lost the entire character, and now he's just a procession of gay jokes. That when this first went on the list, I said we started the show 2014, and those early seasons of Family Guy, the whole thing was Stewie was that he was this rage-filled genius inside a toddler's body, and his entire thing was murder and chaos and death, particularly focused on Lois, but on a wider scale, he was going on to be some sort of dictator, and to a point where they made fun of that in the show and as it went along. But then over the years, he's just become a bit of a foil for Brian to make gay jokes.
Yeah, now I haven't seen an episode of Family Guy in probably 10 years. Actually, I was surprised he was 20 years old, but yeah, that's probably about right because I haven't seen it in a very, very long time. No particular reason for that. I just haven't.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
I was the same. It was whenever it was on, I wasn't around, or I didn't have time, and it's been on one of the ITV channels. It's on ITV2 or ITV3 all the frickin' time now, and they're all new episodes. It's all stuff I haven't seen, but I just don't have time to keep up with it because between this show, the other shows we do, and like life, I don't have time to sit down and watch box sets like I used to. And I know nobody watches box sets anymore, so streaming. But no, I don't have time to sit down and watch a season at a time, or say, right, this week I'm going to watch Family Guy. This week I'm going to watch Simpsons. This week I'm going to watch whatever. Because generally, by the time I come home from work, sort the kids out, do whatever prep we need to do for this, I'm like, right, okay, I need to go fall off a cliff now.
Yeah.
I don't have time to sit down and watch TV for hours on end.
Yeah, and if you do, you're certainly not going to be spunking half an hour on an episode of Family Guy. So yeah, in terms of how that character's evolved, other than I guess last time I was watching, there was that there's a lot of jokes about show tunes and stuff like that, and it's just general more camp humor, I think, than anything else. But yeah, the character in my mind anyway is still very much like this evil genius. He almost is like Maggie's arch enemy baby, with the one eyebrow.
Yeah.
He's almost that, just able to walk on two legs, and I mean he's depicted as a baby, but he's really more of a toddler, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yeah, you'd probably put it. You'd probably put if you were looking to age them, you'd probably put Maggie at about a year and him at about 18 months, pushing so 2 years old. There's a in terms of baby development, there's a substantial difference between the two of them.
Yeah.
Until you get into Maggie being really fucking dark.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Because on paper, straight away, you're like, well, yeah, but Stewie's like an evil little dictator. So,
Yeah, and a
he's
genius
got,
who makes time machines and ray guns
yeah,
and
he's going
shit.
to have a mean streak and stuff like that. But then, yeah, once you dive into Maggie and you get past it, I mean, that's the whole thing with Maggie. Once you get past the sweet exterior,
Yeah.
like, yeah, she's a fucking piece of work.
And again, I mean, talking of the ways of characters have evolved, that's gone the other way. Whereas Maggie started out as being kind of not so much a background character, but she was just sort of there. And she was with the rest of the family, so she was front and center. But it was always the Bart show, and then it became the Homer show. And Maggie never really had a chance. And then as they built up towards the film, which was what 2007-ish, they started giving Maggie a bit more agency in the show, and they started making more of Maggie as a character. And to a point now where with the Disney Plus stuff, they're actually giving her own shorts.
I was just about to bring that up, actually. Yeah, I mean, I said I haven't watched Family Guy for about 10 years. I don't think I've watched a new episode of The Simpsons. Fucking hell, probably for 15 or 20 years. I really fell off The Simpsons once Homer became the stupidest human being on the planet. Like,
Yeah.
they really drove that fucking into the ground.
It seems to be an American show thing, actually. I mean, not just Simpsons, but if you look at stuff like Friends, they did it with Joey.
Yeah.
They just completely threw him off a cliff. And by the end of that show, they'd made pretty much all of the characters complete caricatures.
Yes.
And the Simpsons have done the same. They've gone, right, okay, Marge is a homemaker, but she's really dissatisfied and disgruntled, and so we'll give her something. We'll give her these wacky things to go off. And I've got to be honest. Since they've come onto Disney Plus, I have started watching them again. I've probably watched the most recent four or five seasons. And again, because they are easy, you don't have to concentrate on them. I can stick them on while I'm doing something else. And every now and again, you're going to get the same ones. You had Marge becomes a cop. Marge sets up a pretzel business. Marge doesn't know all this stuff. And then more recently, she started selling medicinal weed because it's topical and also gives Marge something to do. And yeah, they just kind of went, right, we've got these. I mean, don't get me wrong. They've been on the air for like 15 million years or whatever it is. It's got to be hard to come up with new ideas. And the seasons are getting shorter, whereas they used to be 24, 25, 26 episodes. Now they're 15, 16, 17. So it must be hard to come up with with the ideas and keep it relatively fresh. And I think the problem is they have resorted to the caricatures, and you can always tell if you're having one of these episodes where it's going to be a Marge episode or a Lisa episode where Homer and Bart will have some wacky exploit, some wacky business venture, which will be completely not worth it and will completely backfire. But it's always the same. So we had Lisa the President, you had Bart and Homer looking for Lincoln's gold in the lawn of the White House and stuff like that. And they always kind of do that. So they have these formula now where you say, right, okay, it's a Lisa episode, so we know what we're doing. It's a Bart episode, we know what we're doing. And Maggie's probably the only character who's really changed for the better in the show. Because I say Homer became a dumb as a bag of rocks to a point where, and I know they did crossovers. I haven't seen any of the crossovers they did with Family Guy, actually. They did Simpsons Guy and stuff like that a couple of years ago. Not seen any of those. But yeah, you just kind of get the impression they don't really know what they're doing with these characters anymore. And I know it's week to week. It's not linear at all. There's very little follow through on it. You'll get a couple of things that will pay off a couple of years later, like the fact that Skinner's not really Skinner, and every now and again that comes up in a very offhand sort of way. But generally, you go week to week and nothing really matters, apart from the fact that Homer gets dumber and other people get more cynical. But Maggie becomes this. Maggie has gone from being kind of just like set dressing to almost being the sort of the almost the sort of the underwhelming star of the show, whereby you're always wondering what she's going to do.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly the case with those Disney Plus shows. Like they give her a lot to do. She's clearly quite an evolved character now. And yeah, for me, I jumped back on when they came around. Just because they were on Disney Plus and I have Disney Plus, so
and they're like 5 minutes long.
Like 5 minutes long. Yeah. One of them's Star Wars themed as well. So it's like, yeah, I'll give that a look. Then there's like an Avengers one as well. I'm like, I'll give it. And so yeah, I mean, there were elements of that there with Maggie before I dropped off the show. Like she was starting to become something other than just the baby that is attached to Marge's hip the whole time. Essentially, she was almost like an accessory for Marge in those early shows. But yeah, she's definitely evolved into this almost sort of baby genius herself, really.
Yeah.
And as you say, definitely on the, at best, chaotic neutral side of the scale, if not possibly chaotic evil. Because there seems to be very little kind of thought about consequence when you see her action. She's just, I mean, she's a baby, so it is just, she will do what she needs to do to get the result that she needs. And you know, the ever escalating war with the monobrowed baby as well just gets sillier and sillier and sillier and more and more violent. Whereas I think you're right, Stewie's, even looking back to the seasons that I did last watch of Family Guy, does seem to have charted his arc the other way, where he starts off as like basically a psychopath.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets diluted down further and further and further as he gets pushed further and further to the forefront of the show. I do certainly remember before I dropped off Family Guy, there were entire episodes where it was just Brian and Stewie, which is very, very funny. But it does sort of neuter the character slightly, no pun intended, considering we're talking about Brian. But what on paper, when you look at it initially, is a whitewash, is actually, like, as the characters have kind of moved, sort of tipped the scales in either direction, they are almost sort of meeting in the middle now.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, when you talk about advantages one has over the other, like the initial thing that I can see is the only thing Stewie has going for him over Maggie is that he is able to walk upright. And he
moves very well as well.
Yeah. And he is able to communicate. He's verbal, whereas Maggie is very much just sucking dummies and crawling around the floor. However, I also feel there's an element with Stewie of the evil mastermind thing. Like, it almost puts him into that Bond villain thing of like, well, he's too eccentric to actually see a plan through, because whereas Maggie's slightly colder, more calculated. She's more of a serial killer then.
Well, it's interesting actually. You say that. I mean, if you look at them as well, when they're playing babies in the show, when they're not being calculated and all the rest of it, you've got Maggie on the one hand, who's always she's always sucking on the pacifier. She's always she'll it's almost like she's cruising like a newly walking child, and she can step a bit and then she'll fall flat on her face and then get up and do it again, or she'll crawl around, and so we'll have all of that, and then you get when nobody's looking, you get these episodes like the Maggie's Great Escape, where she's in the daycare and she goes after the dummy and she leads the rebellion and all this sort of stuff, where when nobody's looking or when things go against her, she hardens up, almost like, and I use this very sort of loosely, but like a neglected child who doesn't cry anymore because no help is coming. She almost goes that way, whereas Stewie is a punk ass little pussy bitch, where he skins his knee and he cries for his mummy.
Yeah, I think there's an element of, again, going back to this whole kind of Broadway show tune thing that they seem to have built into the character now as well. There is an element of performance to that as well, though. There is an element of it not being so much genuine as I can use this to get attention, and with attention comes favor, and with favor comes whatever it is that I ultimately want to get. So I think that's slightly more calculated than just being a bitch.
I think sometimes, I mean, they, again, as you go through it, as the character has changed, you've done that. I mean, you do see bits of it, and I see it with my kids all the time, where somebody flicks the other one, and all of a sudden they try to push them down the stairs, or by the time they come down and tell on the other one, it's somebody threatened to shoot me or stab me or whatever. I was like, fucking really, what happened? I poked me. Okay, well, fuck it, So there is certainly an element of that in it, but there are times where I think. Do you remember the Kevin and Perry sketch on Harry and Phil Chums, where the big boys came and stole the stereo, and Kevin the teenager? Yep. There's elements of that where it's like he doesn't actually know how to respond to things.
Yeah, so he's like emotionally stunted, essentially.
Yeah. So he goes from being that I'm going to kill you, damn you, vile woman, to bursting into tears and not knowing where he is and what he's doing, and he just wants his mum. And it's, I don't know, sometimes you say, sometimes it does feel calculated and forced, and sometimes it does feel real with him. But you never get that with Maggie one way or the other. Like Maggie doesn't often cry. They don't depict Maggie crying at all.
No, there is an element, and again, we have to use these terms loosely because we're not wishing to judge anybody here. So we are talking in a very stereotypical manner, and neither of us are really qualified to talk about these things. But there is definitely an element of the psychopath to Maggie's behavior. There's definitely an element of not really caring or understanding or being emotionally attached to these actions. Whereas, yes, I think you're right, Stewie, whether he's calculating a means to an end or whether he's having an emotional reaction to something that's happened, he's still very much reacting in the moment. Whereas Maggie's able to be slightly more detached from that. It always seems to be, and so it's played off that way as well, where she might take the dummy out to gesture and then put it back in straight away without even thinking about it. It's not like it's not like it's a fuck you or anything like that. It's I need to put this back in now before I'm found out, essentially. And so
sometimes you do get bits like where she'll twirl it around like a gunslinger.
Yeah,
she'll twirl it around her finger and shove it back in. And you're right. I mean, if you look at you go back to the movie, and spoilers for a film that's 15 years old, but when at the end of that, Homer and Bart are about to get their comeuppance, and she pops up behind the EPA guy and shoots him in the back with a shotgun. And then she just throws the shotgun away and crawls back down, and Marge picks her up, and everything's fine again. But there's very much a look between Bart and Homer, which is, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And you do get, and they do play on that. So I certainly after the movie, for the couple of years after I did sort of keep up with it, they did play on that more. And there was this element to Maggie, which was like, okay, she's a little bit dangerous. We don't really know what's going to happen next with her. And I mean, that probably started with Who Shot Mr. Burns.
I was going to say, I mean, let's not forget, she shot Mr. Burns as well.
Well, I mean, the gun kind of went off in her hand. She didn't actually pull the trigger at that point. But
maybe that was the start. I mean, the problem with tracing a character in The Simpsons as opposed to Family Guy, and both are episodic, don't get me wrong, and Stewie will be a perennial baby, same as Maggie is, but I feel like there's more character arc to Family Guy. There is more inbuilt character development, and they call back to earlier episodes more and events from earlier episodes more than The Simpsons does. The Simpsons, each episode exists in its own episodic bubble, really. Yeah. Like, we get to know these characters and who they are, but there never seems to be a real cause and effect to it. Like, unless a character's going to get written out or someone's going to die or something like that, there's not really a lot of cause and effect in The Simpsons. So
no, I mean, you will occasionally get a call back, and I say it'll be a single line. It'll be, somebody will do something and say, oh yeah, like that time you did that.
Yeah,
shut up.
Yeah,
and it's kind of that. It's never acknowledged. It's not on a timeline. It's just right. Springfield is its own little microcosm, and it's been 1989 forever.
Yeah. So I think when we do get those moments, they kind of stand out. And looking back on it now, you sort of think, well, maybe that moment there, that gun going off in Who Shot Mr. Burns, maybe that's the flashpoint for Maggie. Maybe that's the point where she's exposed to violence at a very, very young age, and all of a sudden it just becomes this bloodthirsty maniac who shoots people with shotguns, arranges breakouts from daycares, fights with lightsabers. She's almost like, and I've not seen it, but this is what I imagine it's like, but she's almost like the evil version of Boss Baby. Where I've not seen the Boss Baby, but I assume it's a baby being a boss to other babies. I don't know.
There's kind of a business side to it. It's the whole thing. It's weird.
It looks shit, so I haven't watched it.
I've not seen the film. I've seen a couple of episodes of the show, and thankfully my kids, they went, oh, this is fucking rubbish. I haven't watched it since.
I could be miles off the mark there, okay? But it just gives me this feeling with her of just like, she's the Don then, if you like. She's the absolute alpha of the little Springfield baby microcosm. Yeah. And then
you got Monobrow, who's
he's basically the warring family. No, you don't really get any of that with Stewie. Again, it's funny, isn't it? It's almost a kind of a walking contradiction thing, where his whole character is built around kind of world domination, and he's going to be an evil genius and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but he exists in much more of a kind of familial microcosm of actually, like, he's not going to affect anything outside the four walls of that house.
No, and I mean, that kind of shows. There's an episode, I was probably in season 3, 2 or 3, where Peter and Lois decide they're going to try and have another baby, and so he shrinks himself down like Inner Space style, goes inside Peter, and ends up meeting his sperm self, and basically it becomes this whole point where he decides, actually, no, his whole thing is, I won't be the baby anymore, so I'm going to go in and eradicate all Peter's sperm. But then the sperm are all manned by fighter pilots, because why not? And so he meets one of these other babies, and all of a sudden he decides actually it would be really cool to have a little brother who I can influence. And so then he then leaves Peter's body, and during that time, Peter and Lois don't have sex, and Peter decides to go and knock one out in the bathroom because he's halfway there. And that, if you look at that in itself, no, it's an easy joke. But from Stewie's perspective, he's not even able to influence his household. He cannot influence anything, and it just it's a nice little metaphor for how completely impotent he actually is. For all his technology, all of his brain and his cunning and his calculating and his genius, he cannot even stop his father having a wank.
Yeah, and that is the right word, I think, for him. It's impotence. He is a perennial loser, actually, despite the fact that he's got these delusions of grandeur. Like he's never going to amount to anything with them because, we're talking about a baby here, so we got to give him a fair crack of the whip at life. But it certainly seems the character at the moment like he's never going to exist outside of the Griffin family. He's never he's barely going to make a dent in Quahog, let alone.
Yeah, and I mean they did some episodes, so the Stewie and Brian episodes. There was one where future Stewie was involved, and he was exactly the same. He was a lonely, he was lonely, he was sardonic, and he was an old man.
Yeah,
he never had the children, he never had the family, he never achieved anything, and he was just kind of this old man who was instilling Quahog.
Yeah, whereas you trace Maggie's path through, and she's either going to be in jail or ruling the world. Because she just has this way of manipulating the other babies, which is just going to follow her through life. And
she has the most sort of street smart cunning as well. I mean, if you look at Stewie, Stewie's all very much grand plan. As I said, he's a Bond villain. It's all big plans, big machines, big effort. And if it pays off, yeah, great. But actually, it never pays off because there's always somebody who's going to foil it. But you look at look at Maggie with the Great Escape episode and the short, the Longest Daycare short, where she's trying to protect the butterfly.
Yes,
and you she's able to outsmart Monobrow.
Yeah,
multiple times in order to escape him and to keep him away and keep him from hurting the butterfly until she can release it. Whereas Stewie wouldn't do that. Stewie, you just get the impression Stewie would try and do that and end up dropping a bookshelf on himself or something, and flattening the butterfly himself.
Yeah. He would come at it like hammer and tongs straight away. He would build some sort of contraption that's going to maybe flatten Monobrow, but end up flattening the butterfly in the process. Whereas Maggie plays the long game and thinks things through. She's more calculating. And in a direct fight between the two of them, you can directly transfer that to Stewie's going to come at her with a big fucking mallet on a stick or something stupid like that, and Maggie's just going to sidestep it and shoot him in the face.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think we have alluded to the problem with the fight between them, though, is that developmental difference. The fact that, I mean, Stewie, he can walk and he can run and he can ride a trike and stuff. But actually, when you look at some of the episodes and some of the shit they get him doing, he can use the environment. They have had bits where he does a little bit of parkour, but sort of climbing over running over the furniture, or 2 steps off a wall and jumping onto a thing, or jumping into swimming pools, stuff like that. So there's a lot more movement there. And that side of things, the physical side, if he were to resort, if he would deign to lower himself to hand-to-hand combat, then I think he'd have a chance. Apart from that, he's got a big giant fucking head which Maggie could just batter. But there would be a chance there because of that developmental age and that difference between the two of their abilities to move. But I think, I don't think he would lower himself to that. He would want to be all clever and he'd want to show off.
Yeah, I would agree. This is more a battle of wits, I think, than it is a physical battle. I think in a physical battle, you're right. Stewie's got the speed, if you like. It's not really speed. It's more it's dexterity is what it is.
Yeah.
And that counts for a lot, as we've said in many fights before. He's got the dexterity. He can literally run rings around Maggie. So in a physical fight, I think she'll absorb a lot of punishment. And
she's Homer's daughter, so
Yeah, I mean, maybe she'll sit there, wait for the opening. You can almost see her sort of just sitting there waiting for the opening, and then spitting out the dummy and just biting his nose off or something.
Yeah.
But he is going to be able to duck and weave. I think it is far more of it's almost a war of attrition here. It's like which one of these is actually going to concede to the other one first. because Maggie's going to be playing the long game of it. There's an element of tactics to it, where she's going to be kind of outmaneuvering him of like, well, he's going to want to do this, which means I need to do that. And he's going to bring this to the table, which means I need. But having said all of that, what is off the table for her here, which is quite a big thing for her in a lot of the Maggie-centric episodes, is she isn't going to have that ability to act as a ringleader for all of the other babies, because this is one-on-one.
Yeah.
So she is on her own here.
Yeah,
and we don't allow guns.
No, but I mean, if you look at the Longest Daycare short again, coming back to that, I mean, yes, there are other people there, but she doesn't utilize them. She utilizes the environment. She utilizes the toys that are there. She utilizes. True. There's I think there's like I'm trying to remember. Wasn't there like there's like one of those automatic Hoover type things, one of the robot things. Like she utilizes one of those for the timing and stuff. There's an element of that sort of almost that sort of stealth game type of aspect to it, where you've got to sneak past without being noticed or time it to get past it. So there are elements of that. So she doesn't really involve the other people in that one either. So I don't think that's necessarily going to be a huge problem for her. And I think that one of the major advantages she will have is that Stewie will completely underestimate her, because he will think he's so much cleverer.
He absolutely will.
I can do this and I can do that, and he won't take her seriously as an opponent at all. He'll think she's a stupid baby, for want of another franchise. Yeah,
absolutely that. I think even though they're both relatively evil characters, as we said, at the best chaotic neutral.
I don't think Maggie's necessarily evil.
No, but I definitely think she's a psychopath, which puts her firmly chaotic neutral at the very least. Because I don't think she's lawful by any stretch.
No. Well, she shot a dude in the back with a shotgun.
Yeah, so she's at least neutral, and again, she shot the dude with a shotgun, and I don't think she fully understands what that is. So that puts her in the realms of chaos. But where I was going with that is, despite the fact that they might both skew towards the more evil / chaotic end of an alignment spectrum, there's an element of Rocky and Drago to this, isn't there? Yeah. I don't think we've got a whiter than white Rocky in this, but there's an element of Stewie coming in thinking he's the absolute best of the best and bringing every technological gadget he can possibly get his hands on.
Yeah.
To Maggie just utilizing her environment and and turning the environment against Stewie and turning his technology against him. Because she's got the smarts, and she's got, as you said earlier, crucially, she's got the street smarts. Because you also get the impression that Stewie is that baby that never played with any of the other babies.
You know what I mean? Completely. I mean, they make a thing of that. He doesn't know how to play with other kids.
Yeah, like I know he's not, but he is the stereotypical only child, isn't he? And I can say that as an only child. But he is the stereotypical, like, don't touch my shit. I don't know who you are. You're full of germs. I don't want to go anywhere near you. Yeah. Cannot socialize. If Maggie's a psychopath, he's almost a sociopath.
Yeah.
In that he just cannot function in society. Like he's
and when he tries, it goes spectacularly wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, his only friend in the world is a dog.
Yeah.
So,
and his responses to things, while childlike and humorous, they're typical. I've not got my way. I'm going to punish. I'm going to lash out. So
yes,
I think it's in Road to Europe where the I think it's early episode, and Stewie runs away to go to join the cast of a TV show because he doesn't realize it's a TV show. And there's a woman on there who's she's like the epitome of sweetness and light. And she's like Mother Mary, and all the kids want to flock to her. And then when they get there, she's actually an alcoholic with dodgy teeth, because that's how they portray rich people, as having dodgy teeth and bad breath.
Accurate.
And so his response to that is
dodgy teeth. Yes.
Yeah. But the response to that is, well, should we go and get some McDonald's? No. Should we go and take a dump in her shoes? Yes. It's I've been slighted. I'm going to lash out. I'm going to punish whoever it is does not let me have my own way. And that's it. That's stereotypical only child. I think the way you look at it, there's such a difference in age between the other two. Like the other two are almost adults.
Yeah.
Whereas Stewie's a baby. Where when you look at Bart, Lisa, and Maggie, there's 9 years between the three of them.
Closer. Yeah, they are closer in age. Yeah.
So it's still a big difference between a 10-year-old and a 1-year-old, but it's easier to manage that way because even the older kids, they're still kids.
Yeah.
And so that's a big difference as well. So Stewie is very much treated like an only child. He's the only child in the family at that point. So
Yeah.
you're right. He doesn't share. He doesn't know how to do things with other people. He doesn't know how to respond. And anytime there is any interaction with other kids, he either becomes completely obsessed and infatuated with them, or he goes the other way to a point where he's repulsed by them and he won't do anything with them. He won't go near them.
Yeah, so I think his reaction to Maggie is quite key to how he's going to approach this, really. And
Yeah.
I think for Maggie, it's about what environment is this happening in? You know, as we've discussed so many times here, like what has she got at her disposal? Now, bearing in mind they're both babies, I'm tempted to say it is going to be a daycare center or something of that ilk.
Put them in soft play. One of them can bury the other in the ball pool.
Yeah. I mean, soft play. Yeah, I think Maggie too young for soft play. Is there an age limit on soft play? I don't know.
They have different areas.
I don't have children.
They have like the baby areas.
Do not lose a baby in a ball pool.
You take them in there. I don't know if they can't move themselves, but they have like sensory areas. So there'll be stuff you could, for example, you could lie a baby down and there'll be different materials and shit. So they touch things and they make different noises and they feel different. So they range. They go up from basically not quite newborn, but all the way up to like stuff for like 12-year-olds and shit. And then they go off and snort whatever they stick deodorant up their nose and fucking smoke and snort through it, but not that outside the spa. Or is that just me?
I don't know if I ever stuck deodorant up my nose. Shoe polish.
Never
don't know about deodorant. Shoe polish.
I don't know if
I used to shoot deodorant because if you shot the can with an air rifle, it would go off like a rocket. But I can't say I've ever sniffed deodorant. I used to sniff shoe polish.
I would say
high as a fucking kite sniffing shoe polish.
Yeah, we took for shoe polish. We used to nick the markers from school and colour them in. Wasn't that bad.
You could have gone with water shoes.
No, it wasn't that bad. But yeah, completely off point. But yeah,
fucking misspent youth.
But yeah, so I mean, some sort of play center or soft player, anywhere like that, you do get small, very small children in them.
Right. Okay. So we figure
and it's a bitch. It means you can't go on the slide because there's little kids on it.
I mean, if this is soft,
fucking fun.
If this is soft play, then this is basically gladiators, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
You got two of them just fucking smashing each other with great big padded sticks and throwing balls at each other and all sorts of things. Now, I think if they're fighting in soft play, like Stewie's got that dexterity advantage. Like he can be maybe parkouring a bit off walls.
Yeah, there will be like nets and ladders and things you can climb up and frames and stuff. Whereas Maggie sort of does stuff like that, but not very well.
No, but I see Maggie approaching this very much as of like actually giving him the first. I mean, we're not talking in rounds here, so I'm just talking metaphorically, but just giving him the first few rounds, if you like, letting him get a couple of licks in.
Let him get
just watching let him get confidence, watching his movements, working out where he's going, working out how he's thinking, because there's definitely an element of that with her.
Yeah.
And then I also get the one perfect shot, just picking the ball up and just walloping him in the side of the head with it. You know.
Has he got sides of his head or are they points?
Yeah, I get all right. Yeah, they probably are points. So maybe grabbing both of those and just she hasn't got a knee, she can't bring it up into a knee, but do you know what I mean? Just waiting for that moment to just take she will pick her shot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've kind of got the visual of the bit where she's in the ball pool and she just sort of.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
just sort of rises out of it, just watching him and sinks back down again.
Yeah, like goes full Lara Croft on him and just rises slowly out of the ball pool and just fucking breaks his neck or something. You know, like you can.
Yeah.
You can just see her being more, whereas he, I think, is going to go all guns blazing immediately. He's just going to run into the ball pool and just go fucking full on chaos immediately. Just pick everything up, throw everything at her. You know.
Now, the biggest problem they're both going to have, I think, is that you put them in that sort of environment where there's a ball pool they can get into, and within 5 seconds they're going to be completely distracted and just chucking the balls around and doing like snow angels and shit.
Well, I mean, yeah. But the whole point is they have to have a fight, so we just have to allow it.
Let them do that, and then when they
the other thing with this is like, they may be distracted because kids get easily distracted, but also babies in this instance will both make friends and fight quicker than anyone on the fucking planet. Like put them both in a ball pool together, they'll instantly be friends and start playing because there's another child. But if one of them looks at the other one wrong, or
I wanted that red
in
one.
the wrong color, yeah, then
All the other red
fight.
ones can fuck off. I wanted that red one that you've now got in your mouth.
Yeah. So a fight can literally blow up out of nothing.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any worry about the how or why they're fighting.
No.
It's a case of their children, they will fight.
Yeah.
Like at some point, most adults sort of grew up, or even most older children grew up and understood that you can't just fight because you want to. And I think that's kind of the difference between people who exist outside of society and people who live inside of society, is just that switch for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But they just never realized that actually, no, you can't just have the red crayon. Sometimes you have to have the green crayon and make do, you know? But children don't have that at all.
No.
So
it's quite funny. I was reading something not too long ago, because obviously with number 2 and some of the issues with him, but there's a theory about sharing. This whole thing that when you're really small, like parents will make their kids share their toys or share their stuff, and actually what you're doing is telling your child that their need is less important than somebody else's, because somebody else wants the red crayon, so you tell them to share.
Mm.
And actually, what you should be saying is, well, no, if you're using it, they can fucking wait. But we kind of build this into our kids that's what you do. It's the polite thing to do, and it's a very fucking British thing to do. I appreciate it as well. But yeah, you teach your kids that you're not telling them to share. What you're actually telling them to do is give up their thing for the other kid, and it takes a long time to break that down and get the kid out of that again to the point where they'll stand up for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a much bigger discussion. There's a serious element of how early you're teaching your child politics there to get into that as well. Do you want a capitalist or do you want a socialist? Which do you want? Because you can come on either side of the fence there and drill it into them from day one, I suppose. And you can guarantee whichever one you try and choose, you are going to send them in completely the opposite direction. Yep. So you need to kind of wrong foot that one.
That's why I taught number 1 to be a complete psycho. So now she's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I was an only child, within the means that we had. When I was a child, I wanted for nothing, within the means that were available to me. And so I don't think I ever really got taught that I had to share. And yet I am probably the most left-leaning socialist most people know. So that came out of nowhere. Like I would quite happily give up anything I had if it helped somebody else who was less fortunate than me, as long as I could see the means to the end. I'm not going to go and give somebody 100 quid to buy meth. But
damn it.
Nice try. But if I have something that can genuinely help somebody else, I will give it up without a thought. And that's not me trying to be evangelical or anything like that. That's just who I am. Now, I don't think that was ever consciously taught to me, but I certainly wasn't taught the opposite either. So I think there's an element of, I guess it's society and your upbringing that, condition. I guess you're right. That is conditioned into us as children. I don't think it was directly taught to me. It was just something that was understood within the social construct of school and everything else. Like you have your turn and then you let someone else have it. And actually, if I can give something up that makes someone else's life easier or happier, then I will do it for whatever reason.
But you won't give me meth money, you motherfucker.
Well, no, because that's just going to make us both miserable. I'm going to be down 100 quid. You're going to lose your teeth.
Well, I wouldn't mind losing these. They're fucked anyway.
Lose more teeth. I'll give you 100 quid to go and buy sweeties if that picks your mood up, and you're going to lose your teeth that way.
Yeah.
Maybe, sugar's probably just as addictive. I don't know, but anyway, what I'm saying is, I think there's a much larger discussion,
definitely,
certainly than belongs on this podcast. And I've already started to reveal politics, which will go way off the rails, and people will write in and complain about politics or something. So, how the fuck did we even get onto
fighting in a ball pit? About kids being friends.
Because kids, they will just like tell them to share. They're going to rally against it because you're telling them to do it, and that is that's a childish thing, isn't it? It's pushing those boundaries is the thing. And again, it's those adults that are unable to realize that they can't always push those boundaries. So yeah, I don't think there's an element of that to worry about at all with kids. You just stick them in the ball pool together. You leave them long enough, sooner or later, fighting will ensue.
Yeah, definitely.
Like guaranteed. I think when you're talking about kids fighting, if they get into fisticuffs, the one disadvantage that Maggie has is she has long hair. Stewie has none.
Yeah.
Like she has a target there. He can pull hair. She can't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he has got that massive melon, though.
He does, but also Maggie has that disadvantage whereby she's not in trousers. She's in like a romper thing with no feet on it, so she can't kick.
No, she can't. She is very constrained, isn't she? Unless she's
fucking baby girl. That's what I was thinking. I couldn't think of the fucking word. Yeah.
I just always think she looks like a fucking glowworm.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a glowworm. Like, but unless, like, if it was Christmas time, they sometimes put her in that kind of star-shaped romper.
Yeah. If they're out in the snow, they put in like the starfish suit.
Yeah. But I mean, she hasn't got any exposed digits as such.
Yeah.
So,
but she wouldn't be in that if they were inside anyway. It'd be too warm.
No, she'd be crawling around in the fucking baby grow. But I mean, that's just a cloth baby grow. Like if they're fighting nasty enough, sooner or later
it's going to get ripped.
Yeah, they're going to be down to nappies, aren't they? They're going to be pasting each other in their nappies because Stewie's got fucking dungarees as well. So they're going to rip off. So sooner or later, they're just going at it caveman style, cave baby style. So I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I mean, diapers are padded, so kicking either one or the other in the nether regions isn't going to do much.
And I mean, realistically, his won't have descended yet anyway. So
true, very true. I really think it comes down to. It does come down to their personalities. This one, I think so. The physicality of it, the fact that they're both babies, they'll just knock lumps out of each other all day long. I think what it actually comes down to is Stewie is immediately going to see red.
Yeah.
Whereas Maggie isn't. Maggie is far more calculating. She doesn't fly off the handle that way. And I think ultimately that is going to lead her to victory because I think she'll absorb whatever Stewie's throwing at her because I don't think any of it's going to be particularly effective. It never is with him. And she's just going to wait for that absolute perfect moment to, like, take him from behind and just ram a ball into his mouth and choke the fucker. I genuinely think I don't think he's got a chance, really. I think he'll do some damage, but I think he'll do some damage because he'll allow him to.
Yeah, he'll do some damage because he is that much older and that much more mobile. But yeah, I mean, anytime you see him squabbling or fighting with anybody in Family Guy, it's a slap fight. It's that thing where they're slapping hands away. There's no actual fighting involved in it. And as soon as anybody actually lands anything, and it could be as little as a flick or a poke, he's in tears it's because he doesn't know how to deal with it. I mean, South Park made a joke of it with Cartman years ago, whereby he's always threatened to beat people up, and then again somebody like taps him in the jaw, and he just starts crying. And it's that sort of thing you can see with Stewie as well. He would be that kid.
Yeah, he absolutely would. He's all bluster.
Yeah,
like he'd have no clue how to actually throw down. Whereas Maggie, for whatever you want to make of this term, is the best one I can think of. Maggie is more redneck than him. Because the Simpsons are just more blue collar and down in the dirt. So Maggie's a little bit more like, no, I'll bite your fucking nose off if I've got to, but I will wait until I get an opening and then bite your nose off. Like when she attacks, she will attack once and it will be effective.
Yeah, and you'll never see it coming.
No, and it will fucking hurt. Whereas Stewie will just blow himself out. He'll just run around not really knowing what he's doing. Probably end up forgetting why they were fighting in the first place because he'll just be annoyed at the fact that he's annoyed. And again, it's that typical toddler behavior of like running around screaming. Why are you screaming? I don't know. But I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. Because again, as we know now with child behavior and stuff like that, a lot of it is because toddlers just can't physically understand the emotions that they're feeling. And so they have no way of expressing those. So they just scream.
Yeah, they just let it out.
Things and because they're feeling all of these things that they don't understand. But Stewie's in that phase of development, whereas Maggie is still very much in the phase of development of. I mean, in some ways she's more mature, and in some ways she's less developed, I guess, because she's not dealing with all of that societal pressure yet. Of well, I've got these brothers and sisters, and or in Stewie's case, like there's a fucking talking dog here, or whatever it is. Like she's still very much attached to Marge's hip. So she's still a little bit sheltered from that and is able to process these external factors, I think, a little bit better than Stewie is. Ironically, being less developed kind of makes her more developed if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of helps. I mean, I mean, slightly off topic. When talking about the sort of the sort of toddler behavior and the response and stuff. There's some great stuff on Reddit. I sort of things, why my kid's mad at me today. I said, no, I wouldn't let him pick up any dog shit. I wouldn't let him, I wouldn't let him get into the washing machine while it was on. I wouldn't. It's like no. I wouldn't let him jump down the stairs. I wouldn't let him eat pennies. It's all this sort of really stupid stuff as to why their toddlers are having screaming abdabs every 2 minutes.
And all of these are reasons that I don't have children, because if one came up to me and went, I really want to jump down the stairs, of course, initially I'd be like, no. And then they would eventually be able to convince me that it's a fucking great idea, to the point where I'll probably jump down the stairs first.
Yeah. I mean, I remember me and my brother used to do it in not the house that my parents are in now, but in the house they had previously, and in both my grandparents' houses, because they had straight staircases. So it was, right, I'm going to jump a fourth step. If you're doing the fourth step, I'm doing the fifth.
Yeah.
Well, if you're doing the fifth, I can do the sixth. And it would make a game of it. And so you would go the furthest until some cunt broke an ankle.
Yeah.
Which we very nearly did quite a few times, because you always catch the bottom step.
Of course you do.
Because
it never goes as planned.
That last one, you try and go a bit too far, and you end up catching the heel on the bottom step, or the second step, depending on how up you are. And then you either go over an ankle, or you go head first into the front door.
Yeah. It never ends well.
Yeah. And that's how you learn as a kid. You fuck it up, and you learn not to do it again. It hurts, you don't do it again.
Yeah, exactly. There is no better teacher than pain.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it almost sounds like I'm fucking training a boxer or something there, but it's true. Like, you fucking hurt yourself. You're like, right, I won't do that again.
Yeah,
Same as if you have a close call. I won't do that again.
Probably won't do that again.
Probably won't do that again. Yeah. Hopefully I've learned my lesson. But yeah, and so I think in a roundabout way, Maggie's, she's less developed, but she's more developed. And I think that is ultimately what is going to win the fight for her, is that ability to just step back from it.
Yes,
be
that
more calculated, and just go, yeah, no, you carry on. You run around, and then eventually just absolutely, like, I genuinely think it's a one-hit kill. I think it's just...
Well, I mean, to me, it's ironically, it seems to me that the episode where Homer became a boxer, and he let everybody blow themselves out, and then he just pushed them over.
Yes, same thing.
That's it.
Same thing. It runs in the family. Yeah. There you go.
No, she's Homer's daughter. That's going to be her move. Like, you blow yourself up, and then I'm just going to hit you once, and that'll be it.
Do you know what she'd actually do? Because and I don't know why we haven't hit on this yet, bearing in mind we're in a ball pool. Like, I think she would literally just hold him under. She would just wait for him to blow himself out, grab that big old melon, and just very slowly and very, very deliberately just push him under and keep him there.
No, I did think of that. The problem with that is obviously there's nothing for him to drown in, because there's air between the balls. But I did think that when I was saying about her coming up and just peering over it, that would be the move. You'd grab his head and push him and sort of pull him under.
Yeah, you can totally see her doing it and just holding him there until he goes limp. Like, you can full on see it happening. Yeah. I mean, again, if she shoves a ball in his mouth first, like, just choke on this bitch. Like.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's fairly one-sided when you get to it.
I think she's a fucking maniac, and I think there's genuinely an interesting show out there about, like, teenage Maggie the serial killer.
Well, like, this is the thing. Like, they've had episodes where they've alluded to what Maggie will be like when they're older, and they always make the joke about she never shuts up, and they never see her, whereas at the moment she's always attached to Marge's hip. So they make all those sort of standard teenage jokes. But yeah, there's very much a show there where you could spin off any three of the kids into some other wacky, some wacky situation. I think Maggie was probably the most interesting, because they've done so little with her in terms of exploring episodes of they've evolved her character. But like Lisa, they've had bits where she flashes forward and she's president, and she's in business and she does all this sort of stuff. Bart, he's a judge, he's a Hell's Angel, he's all this sort of stuff they flash forward to with him. But Maggie, they never kind of explore. They just make jokes about her based on her baby character.
Yeah, she's a blank slate as such. But yeah, she would definitely be, like, she'd be doing time sooner or later. Like, she's a fucking mentalist. I mean, unless she ages out of it, who knows? But she is an absolute fucking psychopath.
Well, she hasn't in the last 30 years, so maybe she will. Maybe she will.
I have no doubt in my mind that she's a fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
So yeah, I give this one squarely to Maggie.
Absolutely. I kind of thought it would go that way, but I wasn't sure how we were going to get there.
Well, as I say, I've done normally like preparation for this show is slim
Minimal.
at best, because we think it's more fun if we talk these things through and find out where it's going to go. But normally, at least I'll think through it before we hit the air. So I've got some moves in my head, and I know roughly who I think is going to. But because I actually thought we were doing a different show this evening,
yeah,
because that's okay.
Probably my fault
at the moment. I did no preparation for this still, so I didn't know which way he was going to go. I think my gut initially when we first started was saying, "No, it's probably Stewie because he's smarter." And then as soon as we started talking, and I thought about it, I was like, "No, this is definitely Maggie." And I've convinced myself more and more in the talking through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think 100% I'm giving this one to Maggie, and I think she will 100% murder him in cold blood.
Oh, absolutely,
in the most casual way possible.
Yeah, and then she'll just toddle off,
as if nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
Put her hands up to Marge, get picked up, and just leave.
Yeah, and you'll know it. You can almost see it where she'll sort of toddle over to Marge, get picked up, and they'll walk out. While behind them, there's flames going off everywhere, and structures are falling down because of the chaos they've caused, and nobody knows where Stewie is, and Lois is frantic.
Yeah, and Brian sat at the bar drinking a fucking martini.
Yeah, hitting on the girl behind the bar.
Yeah, 100%. That's how it's going down. This one goes to Maggie all day long.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you've got any thoughts on that, listeners, please get in touch. Let us know on Twitter at ddpodcastnet. You can go to our website, ddpodcast.net, where you can also get our other shows and previous episodes of this one. Wherever you get podcasts from, like, share, subscribe, leave a message, and we'll get back to you best we can. Until next time.
See you later.